Hello guys, we are live today with myself, Jonathan, from at Carnivore Muscle on YouTube. I'm joined today by the lovely Cristie from Meeting Wellness. We're both collaborators, content creators, and we have something in common which is quite interesting. I didn't actually realise until very recently she started doing more streams, talks, videos, recordings about her son, who I believe has ADHD. For anyone that's watching this now that does not know, I live with autistic spectrum disorder, diagnosed around about the age of 21, 22 years old. Been following the carnivore diet for 4.5 years. It's been largely helpful for mitigating symptoms. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive today, find out what kind of opportunities can be had from people that follow the carnivore diet with neurodivergence, how to improve, any sort of tweaks we might find, any lifestyle hacks, and we'll probably share some answers and share some experiences and offer up any questions. If anyone does have any questions in the chat, we'll happily answer them as well. So how are you doing, Cristie?
Oh my gosh, I'm doing great. I was so excited when you kind of mentioned, there might be some overlap between the symptoms that you've experienced and the symptoms I've seen in my son. And that's really one of the things I wanted to explore with you today because I haven't really dug into what that overlap might be, as well as because I'm a teacher and we have both students with autism in my own classroom. I have one this year, and then some are in like the other classrooms, like the separated out classrooms, because their symptoms might be more severe, let's say, like maybe they're nonverbal or things like that. And then of course, ADHD is a lot. Autism is becoming more and more prevalent. I think in California, what is it, 1 in 26 now or something like that, which is where I live. And but yeah, but ADHD is like we have 2 or 3 or 4 in every class. And so it's something that I deal with here at home. And then I also deal with in my professional life. And so I was really excited to pick your brain because I personally don't have either one of them. And so I do my best to, understand the people that I'm working with or living with, that have those conditions. But yeah, I feel like the more I know about it, the more I can help my own son and my own students.
Nice one. I appreciate your time, obviously offering to collaborate with me today, and hopefully I can provide you some useful insights into different things, anything I might be able to share which might be helpful towards your son. It might be interesting to know, anyone is listening to this right now, that I did collaborate with Professor Bart K yesterday or the day before. It'll come out in a few weeks' time, so you have to keep your eyes peeled for that one. We did a deep dive into autism. We both live with autism. So he's a little bit older than me. I say a little bit. He's about 40 odd something. Don't kill me. I'm 29 years old, so at different stages of life, we've got different kind of life experiences, but we've found some overlap in our ability to mask quite successfully to blend in better with society. And as anyone knows that follows me, follows Bart, we're quite polarizing characters, but anyone actually knows us in person knows it's a very, 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 very different case. Masking is very common amongst the autistic community. We've also done a deep dive recently into vitamins, minerals, and different kind of supplements which might be useful to people on a carnivore diet that live with autism. And that would be quite surprising to some people, because when we look at the data, it turns out there are lots of genetics which come into play, lots of polymorphisms and different factors biologically and biochemistry wise that will impact someone's ability to sustain a successful life living the carnivore diet, at least on the spectrum of autism. So yeah, it's interesting to hear about you being a teacher and your son as well. So how do you find your son's experiences is similar or dissimilar to people that you teach in the classroom? Is it much the same? Do you notice, oh, there's this kind of child, this kind of child? Can you categorize at all? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So the one type of ADHD that I see is actually without the H. So just ADD, like they can sit still in a desk. And sometimes that's almost, I don't want to say the worst kind, but the hardest for a teacher to maybe deal with because they're behaving and you don't know that their attention is just wandering. And so they're not hyper, they're not causing a behavior problem, they're not doing anything disrespectful. They're sitting very still, but in their head, they're a million miles away. So I've seen that so frequently, and oftentimes more in girls than boys is usually where that will tend to play out. My son, that's not his deal. The H is very strong with him. So he's got to be moving. a lot. When he was in elementary school, he would have things like kicky bands that they would put around his chair so that he could kick his foot, and get that is that sensory input and that feeling of movement. There was one year where he had a rocking chair that he could go to and sit to sort of rock and regulate. Today's his birthday, by the way. He's 16 today. So even at the age of 16, he has a rocking chair in his room. And if he's in his room, he's in his rocking chair. So he has that kind of need for motion. And I see that in some of the students that I have with ADHD, not all of them. And I wonder if it's because he's also been diagnosed with sensory integration processing disorder. And that was actually his first diagnosis. So he often, he's overwhelmed by, sometimes too much sound when he was a little kid, being in a auditorium or being in a place with a lot of noise, like a concert, or even at school, being in a school assembly with all of those, 500 other kids. It was overwhelming. And if he didn't have his noise canceling headphones, he couldn't stay. And so I noticed a lot of that. And then with him as well, and this is where I feel like his case is pretty severe, I guess, on the spectrum that I've seen, from not very severe to very. He's one of the most severe cases I've seen, and I have been teaching for 25 years, and I've seen a lot of students and work closely with them. And that's the not wanting to comply with directives from adults in general. And I know Bart K talks about that. Like, if somebody asks him to do something, even himself, like even if he puts an expectation on himself, he fights against that. He doesn't want to do it. My son has that very, very strongly, to where that's where if he was going to have a meltdown, it would usually be sparked with something like that. So like we would say, time to do whatever, get ready for school. He wouldn't do that in a timely manner. We'd remind him. And the next thing you know, after a few more, asking him and him not complying, he's on the floor having a major meltdown, out of his mind, unable to control himself, throwing things, calling us every name in the book, because he just lost it. I've only seen a few other students in my capacity as a teacher that had that, where, literally you'd have to evacuate the classroom because they're just in there throwing things and you got to get the class out. Like, you can't remove the child. That's the policy. You remove the entire class. And so there's only been maybe 2 or 3 other students at that level that I've seen. And my son is one. So his 3rd grade year was particularly difficult in that way, and I think it was because there was another student with his same symptoms, and they were both in the same room. And so they would set each other off too. And so that's a little bit about the spectrum that I've seen. Like I said, some kids have more of the sensory, some not, some more of like, I don't know if they have like a diagnosis of ODD, which is oppositional defiance disorder. My son hasn't been diagnosed with that, just because he has enough diagnoses, but I've seen kids with both of those. And so it is really truly a spectrum of low level kind of things, behaviors and things, all the way up to completely like dysfunctional, where it disrupts the life of them and everyone around them.
Yeah, for sure. I can relate a lot to a lot of the sensory stuff. That's something I struggle immensely with. I find most people, not all people, take this the wrong way because they choose to be victims, but I find most people completely overbearing. Too much info at once, too much input. I've had to turn off like every notification on my phone here enough, apart from personal things, because I get way too many emails. And it's not because I'm absurdly popular or I'm Mr. Special or fancy or anything. It's just because people seem to connect closely to me because I'm very empathetic, which is something you often hear about like autistic people. Oh, they've not got empathy. No, it's completely the opposite. It's too much empathy is the problem. Having to absorb a lot of the emotional drain of other people is very tiring. It's often debilitating. I'm sure it's taken probably decades of my life already. But the sensory issues I have are mostly around light, heat, sound. I used to be a little bit funny about clothing and things. I'm not so bad now, but there's certain textures I'll always wear, or certain t-shirts. If I buy a t-shirt, I know this material feels fine. It's cotton, it's this size, fits this wear on the arms. I'll just keep buying the same t-shirt until I get bored of it. And people think I'm wearing the same clothes. Sometimes I'm like, no, I've got about 6 of them. But that's the way I'm a bit like Mr. Bean or Homer Simpson, so
Mhm.
I'm quite familiar with that one. But yeah, I mean, the other thing I live with is something called synesthesia, which means I experience different senses in relation to external stimuli. So that means I could be talking to you right now and be experiencing different smells. I could look at you and think, okay, she's got, I don't know, say, oh, you got strawberry blonde hair. Then I might start smelling strawberries. That's a less common one. The smell side of things, they're more usually realistic to the point of what is actually going on around me. But like I might notice that, say you've got two pictures in the background there, the number 2 might just appear in my head, and I'm like, where did that come from? So it's a constant distraction that you always live with. But it's definitely actually maybe a better coach in terms of the nutrition space online, because I'm actually able to decipher what people mean a lot better, because I absorb a lot more information that they give out. So I'm speaking to someone, I can listen to the tone of their voice, the cadence. Had it not been for my diagnosis, I wouldn't have realised that was such a skill, because I've just ignored it and thought, oh, this is annoying, this is annoying. But now I've identified it as a useful kind of tool to help me coach other people, and it's been largely successful. But yeah, I mean, growing up, the depression side of it, the anxiety, all the comorbidities were extremely high. I wouldn't say I lived with bullying, but I was very susceptible to the issue of being isolated a lot because people didn't understand me. And I was isolated by my teachers, peers, social groups a lot. I was often put in the corner to be avoided, which is the wrong course of action because I was never, ever a badly behaved child. But I was treated very badly as a child in school, ignored a lot, and very badly mistreated, which people don't want to hear, but that's the reality and the truth of people that live with autism, people on the spectrum. Unless they've got a lovely teacher like yourself, Cristie, someone that is their caregiver, their almost like a parent, their guardian sort of thing that can help give them advice. I was doomed. I had no chance because I got diagnosed so late. So I was suffering all those years dealing with stress and all these different things that impact my body and soul. Hence why I look about the age of 40, but I'm 29 years old. Get a grip, guys. It's okay to look a bit older than what you are. The reality is I'm doing more than what most people my age would be doing right now. And I've learned to accept that and be more forthcoming about my achievements. Because if you go onto Google, go online, American government website, UK government website, national statistics on autistic people. Okay, I'm going to die 20 years earlier. I'm going to have all these health problems. I'm going to have a limited earning capacity of this. I'm going to be on benefits. I'm going to be on welfare if you're in the US. I'm going to be playing, I don't know, World of Warcraft all day. I'm not going to work. I'm going to be miserable. And everything's going to be hell on earth for me. I'm not going to have a social circle, but I've managed to achieve a lot in spite of that. So me saying that isn't to be arrogant, because people like to say that because they find a tall, muscular, 6'1" British male and they think, oh, we're going to pick on this guy. Don't be an arsehole. Get fucked, honestly. I say that quite deliberately because I get way more trolls than anyone else in this space, and it's absurd. And it is annoying, and I do end up having to block about 10 people a day sometimes, which is absurd. But yeah, my goal is to just basically push forward this information that you don't have to suffer. And everything in life is an option, providing you have the tools necessary. And if you don't have the tools necessary, acquire them, get them, study, learn. Like when I'm not, collaborating with people like Cristie here, I'm actually listening to podcasts for as much time as possible to gain as much information as possible, narrowing it down, then passing the information forward in a short 8, 10, 15-minute video. That's what I think more of us should be doing, especially in this space. There's not a lot of talk about autism. So obviously I jumped at the opportunity today to speak with Cristie. And there's another lady called Juliet. I can't pronounce her second name, but her name's Juliet, and she lives in the US, and she's just started a autistic carnivore focused YouTube channel, which is pretty cool. But yeah, we're pioneers in this space. We're doing something useful for people that truly deserve it, I'm sure. Hopefully I can help answer any questions that you guys have in the chat, if there are any questions in the chat, but let me know. But I'm just going to put up on the screen now quickly Juliet's channel. So if you guys want to subscribe to Juliet, the channel name is way too long. She does need to get rid of all that stuff because it is way too long. It's going to take too long to type in and no one's going to click on it. So please, Juliet, I highly suggest that you change your name to Juliet's Autistic Experience, or Carnivore Juliet, or Autistic Carnivore Juliet, or anything else. because like typing in these names is impossible. Like, I struggle to find Nicole sometimes through YouTube. Just
Hmm.
type in former fat girl, nothing.
Hmm.
Nicole Malone, nothing. It's like,
Wow.
I don't know. Yeah,
Well, I'm
bizarre.
going to go subscribe to you, Juliet, right after this. I'm so glad you popped in here today. But Jonathan, what you were just saying, it brought like a bunch of questions to my mind. So I guess the first one I have for you is, so you were diagnosed not until your 20s, I heard you say. So, and then you didn't go carnivore until a few years after that. Do you think had you done a carnivore diet earlier, like when you were still developing, would it have helped you even more than it's already done so since going carnivore as an adult?
Yeah, I think it would have added about 20 to 30 years onto my lifespan. And I say that in reference to the fact that we're talking about a 5 year differential from 21 being diagnosed to if I was diagnosed at say 15 as a teen, my life would be completely different. I don't know how different, but I know my health would absolutely certainly with absolute guarantee be much better in terms of physical ability. I would have staved off a lot of inflammation, a lot of the spine disease that I have, the hip problems I've got, asthma probably. That asthma cleared up in about a week on the carnivore diet. Like, it's like I don't even have it anymore. And I'm not like a fit person, you know. When I get to the gym, I train, I do resistance training, but I don't do cardio really or anything, intensive like that. But I feel a lot fitter in that kind of sense. I think that it would have helped me in university more. I would have had a better social experience. I was around very abusive people. I was I believe, the only omnivorous, I guess you might say, person at university on my course. I was working with anorexia vegetana disciples, which is inevitable when you're studying nutrition. So that was not much fun. I was actually basically pushed to the side and excluded from things because of that. Even when I pointed out the science around different things, they wouldn't accept it. And this one I was omnivorous. I wasn't, a carnivore. I was 21 years old or something. But I've been carnivore now for 4.5 years, and I've pretty well defined what my optimal diet is. I've worked out the optimal diet for a carnivore with autism. Changes all the time, but it does have more fish in it than other things. And I say in reference to what other people would have on average. Also, lots more eggs as well sometimes. Great for choline, carnitine, things like that. All the things that people with autism do need. I think going back, I think the biology would be a lot better. My biology would have had a lot less illness had I been carnivore back when I was like 15, years old, sort of thing. There's certain things about different amino acids: tyrosine, taurine, carnitine, loads of different things, even omega-3, different things like that, magnesium, vitamin D. There's very close correlations between having sufficient levels of those in your body and improving symptoms. Which is why when people say, "Oh, if you just eat, meat, fat, and water and salt, you get all the benefit." No, that's not true at all. If that was true, I would have met more than 5 people that follow that diet in my 4.5 years of being a carnivore. And the reality is they don't. Statistically, they don't. So most people do thrive on a mixed animal food diet, according to just statistics. The problem I had with that kind of diet was my genetic polymorphism, meaning I had a SNP, which basically means that part of my DNA means I require more calcium than other people. Evidence for my claim comes from the fact that I've had the genetic test for it. I've taken all the calcium-rich foods out of my diet. Did it for 3 days. Felt horrendous. Extreme anxiety, panic, dry skin, could not sleep, restless legs. Not something you'd want to try and adapt to, in my opinion. So obviously I came off that diet and I tried it again and again and again. And I worked out it's definitely calcium, which I require more of. So there isn't an optimal carnivore diet for anyone. Anyone saying there is does not know what they're talking about, and they have not spoken to enough people to realise how different people's diets are. I know a lot of people out there will say, I just eat steak and eggs. Steak and eggs is probably the best. Largely speaking, I think if you have the biggest bracket, the range of people, yeah, steak and eggs is probably the best diet. But then there's going to be, people that just need a bit more fish sometimes, a bit more, I don't know, shellfish, something else, liver, organs, all these things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I How does your experience go with your son with his diet? Does he have sensory issues or palate issues?
Yeah, huge palate and sensory issues with all 5 of his senses, according to his occupational therapy assessment. So that's just not me saying that. I really I remembered that he used to also have issues with his clothing, not as severe as some children. Like some children just don't want to wear anything because they don't like the feeling of that on their body. He is a little bit particular with clothing, but it's not that difficult to work around. So, yes, he does have sensory issues. And I think probably the largest or maybe the most impactful in his life was with his palate. So, when I tried to start weaning him from breast milk onto food, he would just throw up. It didn't matter what it was, it didn't matter how smooth it was. You put anything in there that wasn't milk, and he would literally throw it back up. When we tried to get him off of, because I'm a working mom, so I would pump my breast milk and then he would have that in a bottle at his caregivers, which was his grandmother. But when we tried to change him from like a bottle to any kind of a cup, or like kids will often do like a sippy cup or a cup, yeah, he would scream. Like you try to put the sippy cup in his mouth and he would literally scream and like arch his back, and he did not like the feeling of that at all. It was we got him onto, because again, standard American diet, we did not know the nutrition information that we know now, but just getting him on the pureed baby foods was a challenge. And then he was on those for all the way through preschool when he was 3 years old, because we kept trying and he would, I don't mean spit it out. I'm not saying he would spit it out. I'm saying he would throw up. He would just, you put it in there and then it wasn't just, it would just, everything in his stomach would come out. And so I was very, as preschool loomed and got closer, I was very nervous about sending him there. So I'm like, I can't send this kid to preschool with baby food, that's not going to be good. Fortunately, by the time we got there, he was able to eat some very, very like applesauce that wasn't baby food applesauce, but as long as it was very, no lumps in there. Same thing with like yogurt with no fruit in it, just very smooth. He could eat those things. And so I was able to send him not looking like a total weirdo to school, because I didn't want the other kids to pick on him. I can't send baby food to school. So yes, it's always been difficult. And then throughout his life, getting him to try new foods. So eventually he graduated from the totally pureed things to where he would eat like macaroni and cheese. He would eat like processed chicken nuggets, because it's all ground up really fine. He would never eat any meat like a chicken leg. It was too much texture for him. He would not do it for years and years. He would eat things like quesadillas. He did not like, he's never really eaten vegetables, which is, now I know a good thing, but it was highly processed though, the things that he was eating, because of the texture issues. And I really didn't know how to get around that. I think it was just years of practicing. And even when he went to occupational therapy, the palate issues, they were like the last things that they were going to tackle. I took him there for over a year, and they tackled all of the other things. And then palate was at the end, but they weren't doing anything there. They were just like, okay, mom, you need to introduce a new food every single week and journal it. And I was like, okay, that was too much for me, because we were already fighting 3 or 4 meltdowns a week. I'm like, I got to pick my battles here, and food isn't going to be one of them. And so every occupational therapy visit was a $20 copay. And so that's the point where all of his other tests were like, they were in the normal range, whereas they had been before below normal. Now they were low normal, and it was just the palate. And I was like, okay, we're done, because I'm not going to fight this battle. And I'm not going to keep paying $20 every week to keep coming back and just tell them what all the things I've been doing when they're not really doing anything at that point. Although they did help. I'm not saying they didn't help. They helped with a lot of his other sensory things, just not the palate. So the palate was the first one that we really noticed, and the last one to sort of get better. So putting him on a carnivore diet, first of all, he was 15 when I did it. So I had to get buy-in from him. I wasn't even like totally thinking he's just going to be strict carnivore. I was just saying maybe he's keto, maybe he's ketovore. My thing was, let's get all the processed food out and get the fat nice and high to help his brain. And at the beginning, we really did a lot of what I like to think of. They were like carnivore foods, but they were substitution foods for him. So he liked the processed, like Hot Pockets And we found a way to use like mozzarella cheese and pepperoni and sausage to make him like a pizza pocket, that's like a kind of a carnivore version of, and way less processed, right? We also made him chicken nuggets out of ground chicken with some pork panko and stuff instead of buying them from the freezer aisle. But what I find endlessly fascinating is that the longer he's been doing this, and he did start in February of this year, so it's been 7 months. The longer he's been doing it, the more he has veered away from those things just kind of naturally and gone towards meat without me saying anything. Like, I didn't tell him this chuck roast is better for you than this carnivore pizza pocket. Like, I never told him anything like that. I just wanted him to, just eat what he likes, and let's get the fat high, and let's get adapted, fat adapted and all this stuff. And he did that. And then it was like, naturally now, if there's no chuck roast around, leftover in the fridge, he's like, when are you making chuck roast again? Is there any picanha around? Can we have pork shoulder? And so those are his favorites. He also does eat chicken now. He likes chicken thighs. Heart attack style Rick. I see Rick down there. Heart attack style Rick. That's his favorite way for the chicken thighs. And so, yeah, that's the things he gravitates to now. When he first started, he was having like a little keto dessert after dinner each day because he was used to that. And that was the thing he said was he didn't want to give that up. And I'm telling you, I never told him, cut those desserts out. That's the worst thing you're eating. Like, I never said anything like that. He went from having one every single day to now it's maybe one every 2 or 3 weeks, just on his own, just naturally. And so I find that fascinating because a lot of adult carnivores, like me and other people that I've interviewed and talked to on a regular basis, a lot of us will say like our cravings have gone away. We just want meat now. And it's funny because I never told him any kind of specific thing other than, okay, we're going to eat these foods now. But I never told him these are worse and these are better. He just gravitated toward the ones that I think would be better. He never had any adaptation symptoms. So I just try to add, I put like extra butter in his eggs. He likes eggs. I never thought he would, but he likes scrambled eggs with sausage and like some extra butter in there. And also the fat from cooking the sausage. I leave that right in there. Yeah, he has no problem eating that food around his friends or anything like that. And it's the only thing, and believe you me, we have tried multiple different therapies, approaches, techniques, medical things. Nothing has touched his emotional dysregulation, which it was extreme. Nothing has touched it. And this diet I'm not going to say it's 100% better. It's about 90% better. It's night and day.
That's really impressive to hear. I mean, 90% better. I mean, that's very noteworthy. What diet achieves 90% improvement in symptomology? Like, vegan, vegetarian, Mediterranean, anything, nothing comes close. So that's where I always draw from these anecdotes, and they do mean something. The problem is getting these people to speak about it, or obviously by default, de facto, you speaking about it on his behalf, which is really, really good and really, really appreciated. I just wanted to send out like a little invite just to people. If you do live with autism, you are able to access a phone, a camera, a webcam, microphone, whatever, and share your experience on my channel, or perhaps even Cristie's, if she's up for it. And that'd be much appreciated. We're trying to get the message out more out there. Finding people to speak about this is very tricky given the symptoms that they might have, maybe anxiety, things like that. But I'm a pretty chill guy. I'm pretty easy to work with for the most part. Unless you catch me on a bad day, in which case don't go near me at all. I do have bad days, guys, as you've probably worked out if you're listening to this, you know who I am. But yeah, it's been absolutely marvelous. I mean, one thing I'll say about the satiety thing is we're all human beings and we do all have the blueprint to eat the correct diet. It's if we can get past that initial hurdle, that carbohydrate addiction. Now, you've managed to successfully do that with your son, which is, in my opinion, given his issues, very, very impressive. It takes a lot of dedication. It's not just something which you just say, oh, just eat this and be done with it, and when he doesn't, slap his bum or something. That's not going to work, guys, with autistic people. We will push, or people with ADHD will push back hard, and harder. You cannot tell someone like me what to do. You'll probably be blocked immediately. And people do get blocked immediately, and they wonder, why'd you do that? It's not fair. I'm just asking a question. It's because the question itself is an imposition. I'm not in any way obliged to share parts of my life with people that watch this that do not know me at all. But what we share here is, it's almost like a safe space, but we're sharing this to help other people. That's the most important thing. So I'm not here trying to sell my autistic counseling program. I don't have one, but I can share with you guys some insights that I have and an experience that I have. But yeah, I mean, what's been the key thing for you in terms of the diet with your son? Is it that I know you did say earlier about the higher fat intake. Would you say, I know it's gonna be hard to sort of really pinpoint it, but is it the higher fat in relation to carbs? Is it the omission of carbs and fiber and all that sort of stuff? What do you think's been the biggest lever based on your experience? Like, was it you went from, chicken breasts to chicken thighs for the skin? Oh, his behavior improved this much because the fat ratio is higher, or was it, got rid of the broccoli and he's all of a sudden perked up a bit?
Yeah, we literally went from standard American, and I gave you some examples. So it was like the frozen Hot Pockets, the frozen chicken nuggets. He was still eating like the baby oatmeal because he couldn't do like the textured oatmeal, but like oatmeal pancakes with, syrup, not even real syrup, like fake syrup. So literally standard American, crappy, highly processed stuff to carnivore. But like I said, it wasn't like all meat. It was like the little pizza pockets that I would make instead. So I feel like we did a transition in that way. Um, Taking what his favorite standard American foods were, translating them to carnivore, and then from there transitioning over to meat. Within the first week, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if it would help. Nothing we had tried from the age of 3 when he was diagnosed with a sensory integration to the age of 15 when we started this. And I worked on it every single day, like trying a new strategy, a new, getting more people involved, more therapy, more occupational therapists, counselors outside of school, inside of school, educational plans, behavior support plans, and then visual schedules, timers, all these things, right, that are supposed to help kids with ADHD. And he fought, he kicked, he bucked against every single thing I tried. He would blame me for even trying them and saying that that was just making him worse. But if I didn't do anything, that was also making him worse because I wasn't helping him. And so it was like this, I couldn't win. Like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. He was mad. He would just go to 0 to 100 mad in an instant for just trying to do everyday life. And within a week, within the first week of changing his diet, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't clean carnivore, just getting rid of the highly processed stuff and changing it over to the carnivore versions of that, all of a sudden he's coming out of his room with these trash bags, trash bag after trash bag after trash bag. And I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, "Cleaning my room," like as if he'd just been cleaning his room his whole life. Oh my gosh, we used to have knockdown, drag out battles over cleaning his room until that was a battle I quit fighting at about the age of 8 or 9 years old. I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to fight this one anymore. It's not worth it. Live in a pigsty if you want to. Like, I stopped fighting that one. And at the age of 15, after not cleaning his room since the age of 8, and I say that loosely, he never cleaned his room. If anyone cleaned it, it was me. But I would try to get him to help, and he like wouldn't help. And then he'd get mad if I tried to get rid of trash. Don't throw that away, So he never cleaned his room. But at the age of 15, after eating carnivore for a week, he just started cleaning his room. And then he didn't totally finish because it took him hours just to sort through everything and get the trash. It was 15 or 16 bags of trash, like kitchen size bags, big bags, that he took out. And then it was like over the next several weeks, he continued the process and he cleaned out his closet and everything that was left, he organized. There's nothing under his bed anymore. His clothes are hanging in his closet neatly. I didn't tell him to do any of that. I didn't say a word. He just did it on his own. And that was within the first week. So I think it was probably, I always had a goal of being, making sure he was getting fat, and getting anything processed out. So I didn't try different experiments like what happens if he eats this or this. It was just what will he eat with his sensory, in his mouth.
What's a better alternative for sure?
Yeah.
What's manageable?
Yep. Most manageable for him and his symptoms. And that's what I did. And then the improvements just kind of kept going, from there. So we've just seen it just keeps improving over time.
Yeah, I noticed marginal benefits here and there. Sometimes I think, that would have usually really wound me up. But I'm a bit more, I don't know if the word is stoic or something. It's like something winds me up, but I'm aware of that emotional feeling. Living with synesthesia means the feelings I get in reaction and response to things is much more exaggerated,
Hmm.
in some senses. But yeah, I mean, good job on him for tidying his room. I mean, I'm 29 years old. I've done it about 5 times.
Well, for
My
me,
mum
it was
struggles to get me on it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Trust me.
For me, it wasn't the clean room. Like I said, I stopped fighting that battle and I really stopped caring. I really don't care that his room is clean or not clean. It's about the fact that in the past, trying to get him to clean the room, you could clearly see he did not have the organizational capacity to do it. You'd be like, okay, let's just clean up the Legos. It was just overwhelming. And he was able to go through the myriad of a variety of things, distinguish which he wanted to keep and which were trash, organize them. Those were all things. I don't care if his room is clean or dirty, but those skills, right, of being able to look at a task that before was overwhelming, so overwhelming that he would refuse to engage or throw a fit if I insisted that he engage. Um, he just did that like it was nothing, like it was normal. And so that was the exciting thing to me. And I'm hoping that that will continue to apply to other areas of his life when things seem overwhelming. And, maybe they won't be so overwhelming, or he'll be able to tackle it or get past that and get started. Because that's the thing. And I've heard that from other people with ADHD too, is that it's like an issue of getting started on something. It's like this overwhelming thing, and you're like, nope. And you just procrastinate and go do something else instead.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. We'll wrap this up very shortly because I'm struggling to sit down in a lot of pain. But
Okay.
I had a similar experience when I was, I believe, year 5 of school, so I was about 10 years old, something like that. We had to do a singing contest in order to sing as a lead singer in the choir in school and a church Christmas thing. I applied. We had to stand up right there and then in front of 200 kids. I was first to audition, like I always am for everything. I'm always the sod's law. I'm opened my mouth to start singing. I started crying immediately, and since that moment, I have never, ever, ever, ever quit something I've tried to start at ever. So for me, it's easy just not to start it.
Mm.
I have these things in my head. I run each day through the day before I actually go through it, but it's been quite effective. But we'll have to collaborate again sometime very soon. I do
Yeah.
have a golf ball size keloid scar at the base of my spine from surgery, which is extremely agonizing, and I'm struggling to see the screen right now. So we have to end this here, but we'll have to collaborate again sometime. Hopefully, have
Absolutely.
a better day and be on some pain meds or something, which allows me to actually sit here. But I appreciate your time, Cristie, and please
Yep.
follow her at Meeting Wellness, if at all possible, and myself, Carnivore Muscle. But take care, guys, and if you got any final words, please feel free just to say in the chat now.